This is the final webinar in the series from ETP on kickstarting your low carbon innovation journey. And specifically because I am the Heat Energy Business Development Manager, we're talking about heat energy projects today, and that's where I would be able to support you. If you are here and heat is not your main area of focus, the process is the same for everyone. So I will be able to direct you to the relevant BDM or other organisations that might be able to support you if it's not specifically heat directed. So I think we have quite a few of you on, in good numbers. Thank you very much for taking the time out this morning to join us. So yes, I will get started. Firstly, what or who are ETP? So we are an alliance of 13 Scottish higher education institutions, so universities, who have indicated that they have researchers and research development work and world-class facilities relating to energy. That's the list of our partner universities there. So ETP is actually Scotland's research pool for energy. So we are funded by the Scottish Funding Council, and we have fantastic company in these other research pools. Again, areas where the Scottish Government thought it pertinent to invest to look at increasing capacity across the research landscape in Scotland over 10 years ago. This collaborative working ethic is something that's really achievable in Scotland, you know, with a relatively small number of universities, and it's been a fantastically effective programme for Scottish Funding Council. So ETP's mission, I beg your pardon, we are looking to translate the academic-based research and innovation that's happening in our universities in Scotland and translate that into the impact, that, you know, the real life applications of that research and how we can bring academia and industry together for better economic impacts, social impacts, and obviously all in the spirit of low carbon innovation and commercialisation through the collaboration. So I've mentioned it before, you know, world-class research, you know, we're a small country, but, you know, we are mighty and we have a fantastic track record in terms of innovation and you know, invention and collaboration. And like I say, being a small-ish country, we can really work together, and there's really strong links amongst our university partners. And again, impact is our key aim, looking at translating, you know, the desk-based work, the data, into what really matters for people. And probably more so, you know, in the past year, we've had fantastic examples of how that can, you know, really work when we all pull together. And skills is a really important part of this. That's looking at the next generation of researchers and the future of research. Where are the trends, you know, what's needed, where can research and academia fill those gaps? So what we have access to through this collaborative network is over 200 academics, 700 researchers. They could be research associates, they could be lab technicians, you know, specialistly skilled people working on bits of equipment and facilities. Speaking of the facilities, we in Scotland and in the energy sector have access to fantastic marine resources. The PNDC, which is the Power Networks Demonstration Centre. So that, again, that's looking at the you know, you can plug and play and test some really you know, innovative bits of kit within a controlled environment. So this is a sort of setup of an electrical grid where, like I say, companies and researchers can access and play without some of the kind of health and safety impacts that would have in a real world situation, but we can mock those and simulate those. And we have the Advanced Forming Research Centre. So again, that's more around the manufacturing side of things. So if we're talking about widgets and you know, bits, we can look at accessing facilities like that. So within ETP, there are a number of energy themes that we have expertise in across Scotland. So some of them are there, including heat energy, which is what we're discussing today. We have a theme coordinator for each of the energy themes, and they're listed there. So for heat energy, it's Professor Jibin Yu at Glasgow University. So I work with Jibin, to discuss what some of the emerging trends are in heat energy, looking at if there's any particular companies or policies and things like that that are going to kind of impact the heat energy landscape in Scotland. And then we kind of figure out a bit of a plan of attack in terms of what are some small businesses that we would look to attract, or is there emerging areas of research that are more of interest to those in our university network. So as well as being well connected within the universities across the research pools, we're also very well connected into other support organisations, including innovation centres and other funding organisations. So myself, I'm actually a shared resource now between ETP, but also I have a role within the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre. They had identified that energy, low carbon, that transition to net zero within the built environment, specifically around heat in the built environment, was a focus area for them. So I now work with them in their sustainability theme, looking at operational carbon and particularly, heating and the future of heating our buildings. Some of the other themes and theme coordinators are associated and affiliated with other support organisations such as SHIFCA, that's Energy Conversion and Storage theme within ETP, and the Hydrogen Fuel Cell Association externally. So obviously there's great synergies there, and working together and just really practicing what we preach in terms of that collaborative working environment and working together for greater impacts. So we have within ETP a couple of unique programmes as well. So ETP, as I said, is the research pool, the Scottish Funding Council funded research pool. But within that, we have a couple of programmes, one being the ETP Industry Doctorate Programme, which I will mention towards the end. But to date, we have supported over 127 PhD studentships over the past 8 years. And like I say, I'll mention a little bit about that towards the end. As you can imagine, budgets, etc., are still to be defined from the Scottish Government given the impact of COVID, but I can direct you to where you can find more information about that. Now, specifically today, if you're here from a small business, you will probably be most interested to hear about the KEN programme, or the Knowledge Exchange Network programme. So what that is a team of 7 business development managers, including myself. Like I say, I cover heat. Looking at the low carbon sector, we look to take those collaborations that we've talked about and those impacts one step further. So we've spent time managing contacts and networks within the Scottish SME industry in our respective themes, and we can identify areas or companies who have innovations in the low carbon heat sector, and look to connect them with the relevant academics, the foremost academics in their field, in order to solve any challenges and look at commercialising and taking some of those financial risks away from the company in a true knowledge exchange project. So over the last 5 years, ETP has funded over 200 knowledge exchange projects, and they are all partnerships, collaborations between industry partners, Scottish SMEs and academics within the 13 Scottish universities across the 7 themes. So currently we are in KEN 3, so this is the 3rd phase of funding that we have been able to distribute. So we're a 3-year programme at the moment, so we're roughly sort of in the middle. So we started in 1st of April 2019, and we have funding available right through until March 2022. Given the particular COVID restrictions and limited capacity from business and from academic side, we would be looking for projects that would be ready to be completed by the end of this year, and that gives the reporting and the financial drawdown, etc., activity to happen by March 2022, which marks the end of phase 3 for us. Like I say, we were supporting SME and university knowledge exchange. This is our total budget that we have. Obviously, some has been allocated already throughout phase 3. But we also have, like I say, special interest groups and theme areas that are a focus not only for our academic partners, but for Scottish Government, areas that they're keen to see development around low carbon and innovation. Like I say, we're wanting to support the Scottish Government to meet all of these ambitious targets around net zero and the energy sector. We want to engage with the SME communities because we know that there are gaps, that it's a challenging sector to be in, it's a challenging size of business to be in that sector. So we know that there is capacity and there is knowledge within the industry, within the academic partnerships and networks that we have that can fill some of those gaps. And again, looking at the impact of research, taking it away from lab-based, desk-based, but actually putting it into real-world applications and drawing down real-world data that can not only help the business side of it, but can actually help the academics. So again, just a little bit more here on what our aims are. Ultimately, assisting the energy transition through the first two, supporting innovation and harnessing expertise. And ultimately, that will result in economic impact for Scotland, because our projects must be commercialisable projects. They must have a commercial aim, commercial impact for the SME partner involved. We also work closely with public sector, if that could be about identifying, a demonstrator site or access to data. We have good links with public sector, as well as those other organisations that I mentioned previously, like the catapults and the innovation centres, so we can find, other partners out with specific universities or specific researchers that can help you on that innovation journey. So what we have is the Industry Engagement Fund. So for relatively small projects, we have up to £10,000 of funding. These are for those knowledge exchange projects. It is a 70% intervention rate, meaning that you as a business would be required to contribute 30% of the total project costs. However, that can be an in-kind contribution. So that could be your time spent on project, consumables, travel. What we cover is the academic time, travel and consumables spent on the project. So ETP, the up to £10,000 is for the academic time spent on the project. Like I say, the researchers, the collaborations, the facilities, the technologies, the lab equipment, etc. That's what you would be gaining access to through a collaborative project that's funded through ETP. Similarly, sometimes you'll find that there's not the right fit. ETP funding doesn't tick the box for the particular piece of work that a company is looking to do. So what we could do is look at the funding landscape in Scotland and further afield and identify if there are more appropriate funds elsewhere that we can help you tap into. So either, we could identify others working in a similar area and encourage a collaboration or a consortium of smaller companies or larger companies to come together to bid into some larger pots of funding. And again, we can signpost to what might be the most appropriate at that time. So just some of the sort of rules around ETP projects. Like I say, we're talking about low carbon innovation. That's key. We don't fund oil and gas projects. We're looking at low carbon here. It must be a product or a process that is looking to be commercialised on the part of the SME involved, and it must be a Scottish SME, or at least an SME with a strong Scottish presence, where their innovation will have an impact on Scotland's economy, jobs, etc. So again, we're looking at an ETP grant of up to £10,000. Again, that covers the academics' time on the project. If there's something that's a little bit smaller, then we have £3,500 available for student projects. So that would be for PhD students that are working on a relevant topic, who would take maybe a month or two out of their PhD time. We would fill that gap for them in terms of paying for their time, and they would work directly with the SME involved on a specific programme of activity that is previously agreed between the student, their supervisor, and the industry partner. The student supervisor, the academic supervisor, is very much involved in the process, and will obviously sign off and oversee work carried out by the student. So at the moment, like I say, we have a team of 7 themes that have a BDM associated with them. Our energy conversion storage vacancy has been filled, and we have someone coming on board next month. So as to be announced on our social media. But we have energy distribution and infrastructure, business development manager Jennifer Keegan, energy efficiency in buildings. We have a job share between Laura Finlay and Tom Bent. For marine energy, we have Norman Morrison, who is a shared resource with Wave Energy Scotland. Myself as Heat BDM, a shared resource, like I mentioned earlier, with Construction Scotland Innovation Centre. Energy Systems BDM, Natasha Madeira, who is shared with the Energy Systems Catapult. And Alex Loudon, who is our wind energy BDM, who is shared with the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult. So as you can see, even through us as BDMs, we are well connected with other support organisations that are relevant in the field. So one of the, not only, is our funding accessible up to £10,000 with an in-kind contribution of 30% from the industry partner, we have a very quick decision turnaround time. So we're looking at about a 1-week approval, maybe slightly extended given the COVID situation at the moment, but generally it can be a fast process. Again, once all the partners, the actual programme of activity that's going to take place within the time period has been agreed. And us as BDMs can help you through that process if you're not familiar with funding applications or working with academics. We will have time to spend with you to tease out what it is you're trying to achieve, what's achievable within timelines and budgets, etc., and identify the right academics to be working with. So again, this is just a little bit of a summary. Again, this is all being recorded, and you will be able to access the slides afterwards. So this is a little bit of a summary of the application process. What I would say is that normally we have these 2 forms at the bottom, the business support form and then the engagement fund application form. That's actually in response to COVID, the reduced capacity of academics and companies. That's been condensed into a single form, a single stage process, which I'm sure a lot of you will be happy about. So again, our BDMs will be there to take you through what that process is, what's needed in terms of timelines, costing, breakdowns, deliverables, and then the reporting side towards the end. Typically, there aren't a lot of funding pots available that will accept an in-kind contribution. I'm sure the SMEs in the audience will be aware of requiring cash, which is hard to come by at the moment, and for a lot of SMEs is just unachievable and is prohibitive to accessing some of these larger funds. So the beauty of ETP is that we do accept an in-kind contribution, but also it's a great way of starting on that journey, fostering the right relationships with the right academics who maybe can then lead on something different, can identify other partners, identify other funds, do a bit of proof of concept work, which will strengthen any applications to subsequent subsequent funding from elsewhere. So again, I've mentioned before some of our strategic partners from public sector and other innovation centres, catapults, etc. And these are, again, just a reminder of our member universities. So it's 13 of Scotland's universities. So there's a great spread of expertise across all of the energy themes that we've discussed today. Again, just a little bit about what ETP has achieved, and probably most important there in terms of 634 SMEs supported to date, and we've funded over 200 low carbon projects. So again, this is all about what we're discussing. So I thought what would be useful, so I unfortunately weren't able to join me today live, so I have a couple of recordings from a previous project that was funded through ETP. That's David Townsend from Townrock Energy, who are a geothermal and ground investigation consultancy based in Scotland. And we funded a project for them looking at exploratory boreholes in the Dollar area. So what I'll do is, so the questions along the top there, I'll just play the recording there. They're really, really short. And this is just to give you a feel for how businesses have developed and how they've accessed the funding and what that's meant for them from a business perspective. And then there's a couple of insights from one of the academics who worked on the project as well. So from an academic perspective, you can see where they get the value from and why they found it a good process and a good program to be involved in.
Hi everyone. So I'm David Townsend. I'm Managing Director of Townrock Energy, and we had a really positive experience on our business activity from the ETP funding we received. Largely that was because we had some incredible academic support from the team, from Dr. Neil Burnside and David Walls and Dr. David Banks, who have real expertise in our quite niche business activity that we were trying to progress with the funding. But not only did we get that great support, we actually were able to do a first for Scotland, which was do a exploratory drilling program into a mine to look at the water contained within the mine as a renewable heat resource. There had only ever been government projects that had done this before, and this was the first commercial project that was able to do it. So it's usually very difficult to fund that type of drilling, and private clients struggle with justifying spending money on an exploration program, but you need to get that subsurface data to actually be able to de-risk the resource. And ETP funding kind of filled that funding gap that we needed, and we're able to bring in expertise that otherwise would have blown a project budget out of proportion for the private sector. So we were able to do that. We collected a lot of really useful data. There's going to be a lot of ongoing research off the back of this, and a big plus in the short term for our business was that we got some really good exposure and had a marketing push off the back of being able to achieve this in Scotland. So yes, it was a great and exciting activity, and there'll be more coming through in the next year as the research continues. Hi everyone. So I'm David Townsend.
Oh, big one. That's the same one. So the next question that I put to David was, how did he find the process of applying for ETP funding? Because it can be daunting if you're not familiar with accessing public sector funds.
The process of applying for ETP funding was extremely smooth compared to most other funding applications that we've done. First and foremost, that was because of Emma. Emma helped, structure it and helped us write portions of it and really held our hand along that sort of, paperwork journey. And then the other piece, if you're not so experienced writing funding applications, your academic partners will be. They spend so much of their time writing funding applications that actually working on that as a team and delegating the right pieces to the right people makes it a really smooth process that's actually not that time intensive. So definitely worth doing.
Okay, and finally, I asked David what his advice would be to anyone in his position, a Scottish SME thinking of applying for ETP funding.
So my advice for any other companies looking for ETP funding is to engage with the academics. There's such a strong academic community in Scotland, and you'll be able to find people that are absolute experts in your field and engage with them early on and explore ideas with them, because it'll probably take quite a lot of conversations and discussions with them until you find what piece of your business progression fits within the ETP funding criteria and quantity. And the more discussions you have with them at an early stage, the more you'll figure out how they can add most value to what you do. So yeah, we found that we'd had some previous experiences working with the academics at University of Glasgow, and their expertise were really critical in actually getting a lot more information out of our drilling program than we would have been able to ever do if we were just pushing this ourselves and getting a client to fund it. So we got a lot more value, and it was really because of the time we took in those meetings and discussions and introducing them to our client and speaking to drillers and talking to all sorts of different stakeholders with them. And so yeah, find your team, gather it, and then have a chat with ETP about what you can fund.
Excellent. And now we were hearing from David Walls, who was a PhD student who worked on the project with David and Town Rock Energy. So firstly, I asked what, for him as a PhD student, what was the best thing about being involved in an industry-led project?
The best thing about being part of this industry-led project for me was the chance just to be part of a bigger team and have expertise come in from all across the board. There were expert academics in the form of my advisors, which I'd never really seen work firsthand, so that was brilliant to be on site with them and working alongside them. Then the industry partner was phenomenal, and it was great to spend all 3 weeks of our drilling program with them and sort of pick up pointers from them throughout. And then there was contractors as well, and we learned a huge deal from them, both us and the industry partner. So yeah, it was just brilliant to have all this different input in different forms and in different ways, whether that was in all of the meetings and the lead up to the drilling project or on site. And now there's a lot of sort of fallout from that and a lot of wisdom to be absorbed yet. So hopefully there's plenty more of that to come.
And again, so next I asked David, how did working with the industry partners contribute to his specific academic research journey?
Working on this project has massively contributed towards my research project and therefore my research journey. It's not only providing new data sets or more in-depth data sets than I'd probably previously accessed before, but it's actually really working well to contextualize the data I've collected from elsewhere. Previously, it had only been a one discharge sample, and now we've got access to discharges and the subsurface data as well. It's great to sort of really dig deeper into what it shows us. A few of the learnings as well will be really positive takeaways, and some of the conclusions I can draw from this overall research will actually be far more refined because we've done it, we've drilled it, and then we've kind of seen what could happen and what sort of things we should prepare for next time and what lessons have been learned overall. So yeah, some really positive takeaways to contextualize and refine what I've done elsewhere.
And finally, a little bit of a question around additional support and other opportunities that have resulted for him as an academic. In
terms of support, and other opportunities which have come about since this project, it's difficult to say because it's only been a couple of months since it actually happened. But we do now have brilliant working ties with the Scottish specialists and this industry leader in our field. And actually, they are and we are involved in much larger funded projects in the same field. So there's been some really nice sort of awareness which has been raised, and this is the kind of the first thing which has happened in Scotland in this field to get done, and it's definitely turned a few heads. So I think there's big things on the horizon for both industry and this group of academics working towards this.
Excellent. So I hope that from those videos that you could really see the enthusiasm and the value that both the academics and the industry partners have drawn from working with an ETP funded project and working collaboratively, and hopefully inspired you to think about how you would like to progress your innovation journey. So just a couple really quick before we finish, some ETP updates for 2021. Obviously, the impact of coronavirus have reached us all. So our response to that, as I mentioned earlier, was around sort of streamlining our process. So responding to the reduced capacity of academics and less time and need for more dynamic approaches to the funding application, and we've streamlined that from a two-stage document process to a single one. So again, reaching out to myself or to any of the other BDMs, they'll be able to take you through that process. Obviously, we're moving all of our events and our outreach online, and through webinars and things like that. So definitely sign up to our newsletter and follow us on social media in terms of being able to connect and keep up to date with activity from ETP. A really fantastic new thing for us from the end of 2020 into 2021 and for the rest of the ETP phase 3 is a new strategic partnership with Transport Scotland, which means that we have ring-fenced funding for transport projects, obviously low carbon transport projects, whether that be around electric vehicles charging, the social science behind increasing uptake of electric vehicles or hydrogen fuel cells, etc. We have some funding available from them and support funding through Transport Scotland. Also, responding to the fact that hydrogen is a really key Scottish Government focus in the low carbon sector, particularly around heat. Going forward, there is ETP funding available for hydrogen projects, and there are academics all across Scotland in our universities that are experts and that are working on this right now. So if there is a specific hydrogen project that you have interest in, then that's something that we can fund now. Again, I mentioned moving our events, which we normally have quite a lot throughout the year that are in-person events. Everything's online. Our Emporium is normally our industry-facing sort of spring flagship event, where we invite industry to come along and hear about not only ETP's work, but work from the other Scottish Funding Council research pools. That is becoming a webinar series that will be launched in the springtime. So again, keep an eye out on our newsletter and our social media to keep up to date with that. That's really looking at showcasing Scotland's expertise and what we've got to offer the rest of the world ahead of COP26 in November, where there's going to be a huge spotlight on Scotland. So we're doing our bit to contribute to that conversation. The Energy Industry Doctorate Programme isn't just SME specific. That's open to companies of any size and any location. Previously, partners like Scottish Power have funded doctorate programme, doctoral students through ETP support funding as well. What I would say is we're awaiting confirmation of whether there will be a 2021 funding pot available for industry doctorates again this year. That depends on budgets, obviously. Again, COVID has impacted a lot of spending in Scotland and the UK. So again, keep an eye on our newsletter and our social media for any updates on that, if you have any particular interest in the doctorate programme, which is a 3-year programme. So you'll fund a PhD student who will work closely with you as a company on maybe a longer term programme of research versus the shorter term 10k ETP funded projects. So I'll open it up to questions. What I'll do is I'll actually just, I'll leave it on this contact us page. So myself, if you have a specific query or something that we don't get to in this Q&A session, or a specific project that you'd like to discuss, please email me at emma.church@glasgow.ac.uk, or probably from the end of February, I'll actually be on maternity leave, so you can contact Heat at ETP Scotland, and that will go to our programme manager, and he'll direct you to the right support. If your query is not regarding Heat and maybe one of our other areas of expertise, either contact me and I can point you to the right BDM, or use the contact at etp-scotland.ac.uk. And again, that's our social media handles there. So I'll open it up to questions just now, or I'll have it, let me stop sharing and have a look in the chat. Okay. Use the raise hand function if you'd like to ask the question directly. If you bear with me 1 second. So, okay, so again, so the first question, again, I think Jenny probably answered most of the questions here. So the first question was from Alex. Can we suggest other academic research institutions to join process with an ETP team? For example, if Scottish SMEs are already partnered with an organisation listed here on a, not listed here on a project. Yeah, again, so that sounds like quite niche, quite a specific question. So I'd be happy to follow up with you specifically, Alex, separately, or if you want to drop me an email and we can discuss that. It sounds a little bit niche. Like I say, the ETP funding specifically can only buy out academic time for academics within those 13 universities. But like I said, there may be an opportunity to ring fence some activity within your overall project that might be able to be filled by one of our academics, whilst looking for alternative funding sources from elsewhere to complement that, that maybe be able to be filled or to pay for other elements of the kind of overall project. I hope that kind of goes a little bit of a way to answer that, but like I say, more than happy to follow up if you have something kind of specific and you want to spend a wee bit more time discussing that. Again, so Jenny's popped the ETP newsletter link in there, which is fantastic. So Patrick McCarthy from Edinburgh Napier, you'd like to discuss low carbon transport projects. Fantastic. So again, we have a specific transport business development manager coming on board shortly. So Patrick, I'll be sure to point them in your direction to get them up to speed on what exactly you're working towards, and hopefully identify some really innovative SMEs in Scotland in this space. Fantastic. Can a hydrogen project include equipment costs? It depends. If it is a crucial purchase on behalf of that the academics need to be able to carry out the work, maybe that's a little bit of a situation specific, but also it can be impacted by the specific university partner that's involved. They'll have their own procurement rules around equipment costs, but it could be something to explore, or it could be that that equipment already exists within the labs of one of our university partners, and by partnering with them through ETP, you would have access to that for, you know, the duration of the project, where you would get as much findings as possible from working with them during that time. So that's an option. Any more questions? Nope. Like I said, if anybody does want to, I'll just pop up those that contact us slide again. So again, if anyone wants to just take down some of those notes, this recording and the slides will be made available to you if you wanted to go back and thrill yourself all over again, or just take down some of those contact details, or just have a look at some of our other partners. Please feel free to do so, and feel free to drop me a line at the email address listed there. So I think that's us finished this morning. Apologies for running over time, but hopefully you all found it valuable, and hopefully I'll see some applications and some follow-up from you guys soon. Excellent. Thank you very much. Enjoy the day.